Welcome to Chasing Hard podcast, where we talk about trusting God when life doesn't turn out the way you plan. And if you've been alive for any amount of time, you've probably experienced that on some level, whether it's big or small. It's just we live in a broken world, and that happens often. Today, I'm really excited to talk with my friend Noah Dockery, or Doc as we used to call you. Welcome, Noah. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, cool. So, just a little background. I knew Noah when he was growing up. My son, I don't know which one. How old are you?
I'm 20, well, about to be 26.
Okay. So, my youngest son, Luke, and you were in the same league. And I think at one point played on the same team. I'm not sure. Your dad actually coached my older son and your older brother. So, there are
Yep.
some connections. I know your parents.
Yep.
And I know you were raised in a good home. So we can't talk about your horrendous childhood. I don't have any issues there. But you're 26 almost. Do you have something in your life personally, big or small, that you've experienced that was hard for you to make room for God in? Like you had your doubts and struggles and how that fit in with your plans and his plans.
Yeah. Probably two big things come to mind. I'll start with I'll just go in order of when they happened, I
Okay.
guess. So in 2019, I'll never forget February. I lost three family members in the span of like
Mm.
3 weeks. Um,
Wow.
and going through that as I mean, kid. I know I was
Yep.
in college, but kid.
Yeah.
Trying to navigate a relationship with Christ, anyways, was really, really difficult. Didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand why it happened, especially because one of the family members I lost was younger than I was.
Yes.
And
And if I
so,
remember correctly, it was a girl, right?
yep,
Cousin of yours.
yep,
There were lots of people praying for her.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, there were groups on groups of people, churches on churches praying for Brandy, asking for healing. And honestly, it didn't come. And in that moment, it didn't make sense at all. I'll never forget. I, me, my brother, and sister-in-law were going to a concert, and then the day after that concert, the plan was to drive to Louisville and visit Brandy. And we wake up the next day after the concert. We're about to make the trip to Louisville, and we get a call saying Brandy passed in her sleep.
Gosh.
And so at this moment, it's like the closure you want as well.
Hmm.
And you don't even get that. Uh, and it just felt like God yanked it away from me in those moments. It didn't make
Mm.
sense. And like I said, this was after losing my Uncle Wayne and after losing my Aunt Audrey. And so
Wow.
at this point, I am just like depleted. I don't know what's going on. None of it
Mm.
makes sense. And it was just really, really difficult.
Oh,
Uh,
I can't imagine. I mean, it's
yeah,
always hard to make sense of when you're standing and praying for a young person who has an illness. Like we don't understand. Like in
yeah,
our minds, it would be best for everybody, even for God, to heal Brandy and bring glory to him.
yep,
And that didn't happen. I mean, she's healed, she's with
yeah,
Jesus, but not that wasn't what we thought would happen. And that's hard to
yeah,
make sense out of
absolutely.
it.
Yeah. And really the only thing that brought me peace in that entire situation is Brandy being younger than I was. She she literally looked at our family and she said, like I am ready to be
Mm,
with Jesus. Like I am ready to like dance with him and just be in his presence. And I think
mm,
once I realized that that's where she was, I'm like, like my flesh wants me to be mad, my flesh wants me to be angry, and I desire her to still be here,
right.
but in all actuality, like I long to be where she is even.
Amen. Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and And so, yeah, just watching her have that faith. And Psalm 23 always stuck out to me for this when it says, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley,
Mhm.
I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Um,
Yeah.
Knowing that in that valley of life, like I wasn't alone, even though it felt like it,
Right.
even though a lot of times it felt like I was abandoned and lost and God had forsaken me, like
Right.
he was walking through every single step of the way with me.
And I just want to give kudos to you because you were young at the time and you're still young. A lot of Christians still they don't know what to do with grief. Like they think because we trust God and we have a hope and we know that our loved one is with him, we're not allowed to grieve. And the thing is, it's true. I mean, this is a temporary life. And so we will all leave this world at one point. Um, it brings us comfort to know that our loved ones are with Jesus, they're out of pain, but we're people and we
Yeah.
hurt and we miss the people that have been in our lives that we love and care about, and God created us that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you even see the story of Jesus, right? Like Jesus being fully human loses Lazarus and he is like weeping
But
for
yeah,
him.
yeah.
Like he is going through a grief process just like
Hmm.
we do when we lose our loved ones.
Right.
And it's just part of life. And as crazy as it sounds, I'm grateful for that part of life
Yep.
because of the strength that comes from it. It honestly is just not fun, and I never look forward to it in the moment. But afterwards, I can always look back and just say, like I would not be where I am today
Right.
if it wasn't for that entire process I had to
Right.
walk through.
Yeah. And more kudos to you, Noah, because it takes people decades and they still don't even come to that place to realize that there are always lessons to learn, that it's an opportunity for us to grow. We get to choose how to respond, how to react, whatever, in any given situation that we're in. And we were promised to have trouble in this world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So wise beyond your years. So that was your first chronological struggle.
Yeah, and so like I said, that was in 2019. I guess this one was technically kind of right before, but also after, um, because it was kind of like my whole career shift. So I went to Morehead State
Yep.
University in 2016. I was pursuing a convergent media degree, wanted to just make videos, tell stories in that way. I always had a dream of doing like SNL writing, all of that fun stuff.
Oh.
Um, and all of a sudden, I get involved in this campus ministry called Crew. In 2018, I go on a mission trip to Ghana, Africa, spend 2 weeks over there. And that trip just kind of like pulled on my heart. And the Lord was saying, like, I know that this is the plan, this is the path you have for your life. But what if you shifted this way and
Mm.
abided by my will, abided by my plan, and just accepted the call that I have in your life? And I fought it hard. I I did not like it at all. It
Ah.
it was scary. It was challenging. And at that point, I was already 2 years in to a convergent media degree. Why am I going to shift this whole um, this college experience and pursue a completely different path?
Right.
And so I started praying about it, and definitely felt the Lord saying, like, you are being pulled into ministry. I want to use you as a pastor. Just abide in me. And so I decided to finish my degree at Morehead, but tag on a philosophy degree. That was the closest thing to religion that they had, right? And so I was like, okay, well, we'll tag it in there. Um, and added that, graduated in December of 2019, and then got the call to come here to Augusta, Kentucky to be a campus pastor. And I always tell people you get excited for after college because you're in the real world, you're gonna
Sure.
live, right? Like just I don't know, something about the unknown is fearful but also exciting.
Hmm.
And I get here and I go through the worst 2 months of depression and anxiety that I've ever walked through in my entire life.
Wow.
Panic attacks night after night, like feeling like a cloud of darkness was over me constantly.
Wow.
And I mean, you think about it, I was just moved away from the comfortability of
Hmm.
Louisville in
Yep.
2016, and then now moved away from Moorhead, and I am just in a place where I literally
Right.
know
No
nobody.
one. Yeah.
Um, and it was full of just anxiety and
Mm.
depression, and I had no idea what was going on. And just I literally I'll never forget. I called my mom one night. And I said, "Mom, I have to go to the hospital." She was like, "What? Like what's wrong?" I said,
Mm.
"I think I'm having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am
Yep.
98% sure I'm having a heart
Mm.
attack."
Yeah.
And I ended up not going to the hospital, but I drive to Walmart and just sit in the
Because
park.
that's the next best thing to a
Yeah,
hospital.
right. And I just sit in the parking lot, like, and I just start sobbing. I'm like, I
Mm.
don't know what to do. Like, and I finally reached this place, I think, where in the middle of a parking lot in Maysville, Kentucky, where God said, stop trying to do it by yourself.
Wow.
Like, I am just like, you are tired and you're going to wear out so fast
Mm.
if you keep trying to do this by yourself. You're not even going to last another month here if you keep doing what you're doing right now.
Wow.
And so in the middle of this parking lot in Maysville, I just sat and I cried and I said, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this looks like. But God, I give it to you. And like where you lead, I'll follow. Where you
Mm.
go, I'll go. And then the world shut down
Yeah.
and I was all by myself, right?
Again, yes, really by yourself. Wow. I because you and I worked together. I know you were at Southeast on campus or on our campus care team.
hmm
And where were you in school then? I don't remember the.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was 2018, the summer of
Okay.
2018, maybe.
Okay. And then I think you came back the next summer and you were on a different team.
Yep.
At that point, had you already answered the call, then taken the new direction?
Yeah, so the entire kind of journey like started, I think, the summer when I was on the campus care team with
Okay.
you. Because I'm pretty sure that was the year I went to Ghana. And I came back and then I joined the team.
Right.
Um, and I
Yes.
think
I think
that
so.
was the year that everything just was like up in the air, chaos, not really know
Right.
what was going to happen. Um, and then the next year I was at sports and fitness.
Yep.
Uh, and that's when I was fully pursuing, like, I don't really know what this looks like, but we're going to go for it. And I'm
Yeah.
just going to follow wherever the Lord goes. So,
Well, good for you. And how hard that must have been, like to come to that place and then the world shuts down. Like
yeah.
I can't even imagine that. When you said you thought you were having a heart attack years ago, I experienced panic attacks and for real serious, it felt like a heart attack. Like it was a
Yeah.
physical thing.
Yeah.
And so I think the paramedics came out and all my vitals were good. And they were like, you're having a panic attack. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't feel panicky. I'm not having a panic attack. And they were like, yeah, you are. I mean, you may not know it, but that's what your body's doing right now. So it is scary.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how emotional stuff and mental stuff can hit you physically. And it does,
Yeah.
always does. But
Absolutely.
yeah, but good for you for having the wherewithal to go to Walmart parking lot because
Yeah.
God speaks in Walmart parking lots, right?
He does. He speaks in the most random places sometimes, doesn't he?
Yeah, for real. So, for some reason, I thought you were like a youth minister, and maybe because I see you do some youth things
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
you are a campus pastor,
Yes.
and so I'm assuming because you're a pastor of a campus, there are a few campuses.
So we have a few. We Our main central campus is in Maysville, Kentucky,
Okay.
and then I'm in Augusta, which is about 25 minutes down the road. Super small community,
Yep.
1,200 people. A lot of fun though,
Yeah,
close knit family,
that's
right?
cool.
And then we have another campus on the east end of Maysville, so like 5 minutes from our main
Okay.
campus, and it is a rehab center. But on Sundays they stream the services there,
I love that.
and so we have those three kind of like in-person campuses, and then we're online as well. So
I like because our church has a rehab campus as well, and
mm,
that's cool. I like that. Well, that we're digging into real lives, real people, real
yep,
issues. And that's cool. So as
yep.
a pastor, you probably help people or you hear a lot of stuff. You walk with a lot of different things. And you're pretty young. Like how do you do that? How do you manage that? How do you not carry that with you?
Oh,
Because you're also newly married. You've been married.
yeah, going on 2 years.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yep. Yeah,
That's hard stuff.
that is a heck of a question for sure. One of my biggest insecurities early on in ministry that I had to work through hardcore was how can a 21-year-old lead a 18-year-old, a 25-year-old, a 60-year-old, a 50-year-old, and do it well?
Right.
Uh, I I mean, I just accepted like I don't have the life experiences that
Yeah.
these people have. Like, how do I go and like set the example and lead them well as a pastor? And eventually, I think the Lord just revealed to me like, no, like your story is going to impact people,
Mhm.
like no matter what.
Yep.
Your presence is going to impact people no matter what. It doesn't matter like how old you are. It doesn't matter what you've been through, where you are. Like, just let me use you. Um,
Wow.
and so it was a long journey to that point. That did not come overnight by any means.
Mm.
And I think what I've learned, like, there are some times when like the burdens and everything just like sit on your shoulders. You come home and you can't help but just like lay in bed or hop in the shower and cry because it was just like one of those days. Like,
Right.
just a huge burden. But I think the steps that I've taken to kind of overcome those things is one, I have an accountability partner, a person who disciples me, who has discipled me for the last like 7 years now. Who, if I'm going through something, if I need to get something off my chest, I'm calling him and saying, hey,
Mm.
like, help me out. This is
Mm.
what's going on. Any advice, or just listen to me rant, please. And
Yeah.
now my wife acts as that as well,
Yes.
but she's also involved, invested in the church, and so
Hmm.
trying to protect that as well, shield her from the
Sure.
burdens that I'm also carrying, is a part that I never even considered, in full honesty.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
and then the other step that I've taken is I go to counseling every single month, whether I want to or not.
Right.
I signed up. I drive 45 minutes into Ohio for a Christian counselor, and I
Wow.
meet with him for an hour every
Well,
single
that's
month.
great.
Um, and he walked when I first got here and was going through panic attacks and all
Mhm.
that. He was the one who I was going to, like, it may not have been weekly, but it was definitely bi-monthly.
Mhm.
And eventually I looked at him and said, I know we could probably end these, like, with how good I'm doing, but I still have to come every month.
Mm,
And
good.
he just looked at me and said, I think that's for the best.
That's good.
Um,
Again, I'm like so amazed at a few things about your story, and that your willingness to share panic attacks that you go to a counselor. I mean, counseling is not as taboo as it was when I first went 30 some odd years ago. But still, it's to you're a pastor, you're supposed to have it all together, right? So that's so
yeah.
cool that you do that. And then did you have a connection with the church that when they offered you this position, did people know you?
Ye Yes and no.
Mm.
Um, so I there were really 2 connections. The only way I knew the lead pastor, Chad, is through a mutual friend who happens to be my accountability partner.
Okay.
Um, I met him in Maysville, and he not grew up, but he went to Cross Point. So
Okay.
I visited, his family one weekend, left Moorhead, just went home with him, whatever. Went to church that Sunday, met Chad, the lead pastor, and that's the only time we ever met. Um, it was that one time, and eventually December of 2019, when I am like applying for jobs and just getting
Mhm.
rejected, people saying you're too young, no
Yes.
experience. Chad randomly calls me out of nowhere. Met him one time, and he just goes, "Hey, I don't know why, but you are the name that keeps coming up for this campus pastor role."
Wow.
And he was like, I have went across all the boards, all the books,
Mhm.
be like, surely there's someone in the church who would be interested or a better fit, right? And he said, for some reason,
It's
you're
you.
the name that keeps
Wow.
coming up. And
That's
so,
so cool.
yeah,
That's a cool
that
story.
that kick started the entire process.
And I'm amazed because you're freshly graduated, you're pretty young, and you're put in this position. It's like David, you're put in this position to lead. And your inadequacies, like you said earlier, that you haven't had the life experience. But just because we have like life experience, like sometimes God doesn't even use that. He wants us to be open like you are.
Mm,
Just use me however you want it to use me because, I'm not equipped. Sometimes we're just not equipped. We don't have the
yeah,
skills,
yeah,
but God in us.
yeah,
That's so cool.
absolutely.
That's so cool, Noah. So, like, I'm out of questions, but I am very amazed at hearing. We haven't caught up in a while, so we're kind of
Yeah,
catching up. So
yeah,
hearing this part of your story, and I know at one point your parents were driving up to attend your church on a regular basis.
yeah, yeah. I was well, at one point I was preaching just like every other month in
Okay.
Augusta. Just like because we are a satellite campus, so we stream the message.
Yes.
Everything else is live, right? So
Yep.
worship, the
Yep.
host, everything's live, but the message screen, Chad from Maysville streamed in.
Right.
And I was preaching probably once every other month, so that was really easy for my parents. Like, oh, we'll come up there, so support him,
Gotcha. Yeah.
watch him preach. Um, and now it's kind of transitioned to like they can't make it up here very much at all because
Mm.
I'm preaching once to twice a month in Augusta.
Oh
Just kind of like
wow.
work that in a little bit.
Wow.
Uh, and they're actually it's funny that you brought that up because they haven't been up here in a little bit, and they're coming up this Sunday actually.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so I'm excited because we actually have a guest speaker. I'll be interested to see if you know this person. He he attends Southeast.
Okay.
I guess his dad is involved in the men's ministry, is in a group with my dad. So I got connected to him
Oh,
through my dad. His
right.
name's Colin Holba. He
No.
played football for Louisville. No?
No, but I know
It,
there's a lot of U of L connections there in
yeah,
the men's group.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
That's
we're on Super Bowl Sunday. We always try to get a guest speaker, football related, just honestly, a sports related in general.
right.
And
I love
so
it.
yeah, it was cool that he was available and willing to come up to Maysville and
Okay.
speak this Sunday. So yeah,
Well,
we're
that's so
excited about
cool. That is cool. So you did have a support system, it sounds like, and you just put a lot of things in place, whether the mentors helped you, whatever, to be able to do what you're doing at such a young age.
it. Yeah,
I'm proud of you, Noah.
thank you.
And kudos to your parents for raising, because your brother's very successful as well. I mean,
Yeah,
just
he
kudos
is.
to, they did a good job. Good job, mom and dad, if you're listening to this. So is there anything that you would say to any listener regarding any of the things that we've talked about or haven't, that you just feel in your heart that you want to say?
Oh, I just finished. I'm a big reader, and so I just finished a book last night called "Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools." Don't know if you ever heard of it.
No, I love
Um,
it.
it's a really good book on prayer if anyone's interested looking for that. And I later on in like chapter 8 or something, it kind of talks about unanswered prayers, which obviously we kind of hinted at a little
Yeah.
bit. And it tells the story of a woman who she cannot get pregnant, and she is begging God for a daughter, begging God for a son, right? And infertility just strikes, and
Hmm.
she cannot get pregnant. And then she watches her sister, who is a little younger than her,
Yeah.
uh, get married. She wants to have a child, right? So, right before they start having children, trying to start having children, they find a tumor in her cervix. They go through treatment, they remove it, curable, treatable, and all is well with the world, right? Her sister name was Helen. So Helen then gets pregnant.
Mm.
So the sister is happy because she's like, I can't have a child, like, but here, like, I get to live through my sister, get to live through her child. And through the pregnancy, she gives birth, all is well. But as soon as she gives birth, they find that the tumor returned and that it was hiding behind the child.
Wow.
And so this entire time, her body is literally growing new life, but also growing death inside of her.
Mm.
And so obviously prayers are being sent up, churches, people, the entire world is just praying for Helen. And eventually she passes away. Young child, husband, in their 20s. And the sister's response is what kind of struck out to me here. She said, in this moment, I knew that I really had two options. I could blame God for just killing my sister because I sent up prayers and he didn't
Mhm.
answer.
Mhm.
And he could have. He could have healed her and didn't.
Mhm. Yeah.
Or I can say, God, it's not your fault, but you still let it happen. And so either way, it's not the best option,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so she started thinking about it and she said, and then I realized I could choose one more. And it all comes down to I could just trust.
Mhm.
Trust that even though it doesn't make sense,
Mhm.
even though I'm still angry at God, even though I want my sister back and I
Mm.
want to continue to live a life with her, see her grow up to be a mom and eventually a grandmother.
Right.
Um, I am still going to trust God in the midst of the unknown, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's difficult. And I thought it was the perfect illustration of like in the midst of these dark times, a lot of times we think we have two
Mm.
options, neither one very good.
Mm.
But she decided, I am going to continue to seek
That's
the
good.
Lord and just trust God no matter what.
That's good.
Even in the midst of the valley,
Right.
even in the mountaintop experiences, I'm going to trust God
Mhm.
because He's
Mm.
gotten me this far. I'm going to
Yeah.
hope He doesn't fail me yet.
Right. That's good. That is good. And so that's a good place to land, and to end this is we we will be faced, like if we haven't been already, we will be faced with those three choices. And from my experience, trusting God is like the only option at this point in my life, having lived a lot of years and a lot of disappointments. Trusting God it's the right choice. So yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this.
Absolutely.
Because I know like this is your day off. So I appreciate that having you here and
Hey,
talking with you.
no problem. I love doing this stuff. I'm glad I was able to make time and I'm thankful that you asked me to be a part of it.
Oh, that's sweet. Thanks, Noah. Thank you for listening to Chasing Hard podcast. I will be back next week. I hope you are too.